All right. So you've got this. This is your artboard, of course, in the center. You've got your toolbox, your palettes, and your tool options at the very top. I'm going to close this one down. I'm not going to need it anymore. If you'll go to today's Moodle page and scroll down to the bottom, first of all, we have Illustrator Notes. So everything that's going to be on the test, everything that I've covered, let's see if I actually already downloaded them. Oh well, they're on here as well. You can see the different tools that you can use from this. We're going to cover how to create gradations of color, how to change colors, those type of things. We'll start on that today. Today we're going to learn how to make basic shapes and how to manipulate these different shapes. The two tools we're going to work with are the Selection tool, which is the black arrow, and there's also a white arrow. This is called your Direct Selection tool. So everything that I cover will be found in these particular notes as well. Let's jump in. Oh, sorry, I'm going to bring this back up. There's an exercise file you'll need to download for today as well. These are 3 different exercises to work through when working through this. Let's open up the exercise file, and I'll just kind of work through it to show you what we'll do. When you download it, first of all, I'll open this up and be able to show you. Let's see, open in Finder. Illustrator file, Adobe Illustrator files are .ai. Adobe Illustrator. So when you save something or you need to open up something, .ai is what you need to look for. Sometimes you'll see them as a .eps. That's the same thing. It's also a vector format that Adobe Illustrator can open up. EPS is kind of an industry standard. If you don't have Adobe Illustrator, but you have some other program, they can usually open up an EPS file. For most of what we're going to do, AI files are what we need. When you open up this file, usually in Adobe Illustrator you're working on one page at a time, but in this case I've put 3 different pages on top of here. And each one of these will be different exercises for creating shapes and changing the colors. We're going to learn how to move things around and adjust rotation and scale. And then finally how to correct shapes and change shapes around using your Direct Selection tool. So here's kind of a basic introduction I'll go over to here to using different shapes and using vector graphics. The tool we're going to use are your Shapes tool, and it's found underneath your Type tool. If you click and hold on that tool, it'll pop out, and you can see there's some different ones to choose from. And I did that by clicking and holding. Also, if you click on this bar at the very end, it'll pop out, and you can move that around as well. With each one of these, just as you would expect, it creates these different types of shapes. So, for instance, the Rectangle tool. With it selected, I can click and drag and just create rectangles of different sizes. Easy, easy. Nothing too hard about that. Now, if I wanted to change the fill color or the outline, which is called the stroke color, look at the very bottom of your toolbox. Just as in InDesign, you've got 2 different fill colors to choose from, or 2 different color swatches. These are what you'll look for from here. Notice that this last one that I created has a little outline around it. That's because this one is selected. If you want to change an object, if you want to be able to affect an object, you have to be able, or to be sure that it's selected. So in this case, I have it selected. The fill color is white. To change it, double click on this one. It'll bring up a color picker. And from here, you can choose whatever color that you want. Say OK, and it changes to that color. If you want to change the outline color of it, make sure that this is on top, and then you double click it, and you can change it to whatever color that you want. Now, of course, it's red on top of red. I'll zoom in so we can see. You see how it's a pink outline from there. To change the width of the outline, that's up here at the very top in your tool options. Of course, it's the stroke. So I can choose a wider one. Now the width gets much larger from there. You can also quickly change some predefined colors. I don't have any of them predefined, so we're not going to worry about that up there. So if you basically want to change them, these 2 are your options to double click and change it from there. Any questions so far? Easy, easy. Going from there. Okay. To move objects or to change them around, the 2 arrows you have at the top, a black arrow called the Selection tool, and a white arrow is your Direct Selection tool. Let's check this one out first. The black arrow tool, this is the one you're going to use most often. With this one, you can click and move objects around. Simply by clicking on the inside of them or the edge of them allows you to move them and change their position. That's all the black arrow allows you to do. Also, it will allow you to rotate and to scale an object. If I wanted to change the rotation of this one, move your cursor to the edge, just outside the edge of it, and see how it changes? You got a little rounded arrow now. If I was to click and drag, I can change the rotation of it from there. Pretty cool, pretty easy. All of this is with the black arrow. To change the size of something or the scale of it, if you click on any one of these little points along the edges or the corners, you can drag in, and that will also change the scaling of it as well. Be careful to click right on it, else if you click off, notice that it's now deselected. You don't have your little bounding box going around it. So when I say select something, that means click on it, and you've got it selected. If I say deselect, usually you can click off an empty area, and that will deselect that one as well. Here's how you can select multiple objects at the same time. So I've got this one. If I want to select this object and this object and this one, hold down your Shift key. With Shift key, I can click on this object and this one and even this one, and now they're all being moved at the same time. I'll zoom out and do it. Very cool. Very, very basic thing to know. But, of course, if I hold down my Shift key and select again, I can deselect something and be able to move it around. So rather than moving one thing at a time, if you need to move several things, that's the easiest way of doing it. Notice I also have a bounding box around all three of these. So if I was to scale these in, they would all scale at the same time. Or if I wanted to rotate them, I can move it on the right on the outside of it and be able to rotate them all at the same time too. Any questions? Have I gone too fast for y'all? Simple stuff. Okay, so that's what the black arrow allows you to do. Rotating, moving, and scaling different objects. What about the white arrow? White arrow is called the Direct Selection Tool. With this one, and only with this one, can you click on the individual points that make up an object. So I'm going to select the middle of it. I'll even zoom in. See the little point at the end? That's the vector point that I was telling you about. The computer is drawing a line between it. So if I click on, right now all four of them are filled in, but watch what happens when I click on just this one. First of all, check out my cursor. You notice the little dot at the bottom right hand corner of it? That means I'm right on top of a point. If I click on this one, notice how this one is filled in, but check out this one. What's different? It's not. It's got a little white dot on the center of it. That means only this point is selected, and when I click and drag, I can move and change just that point. Everything else stays the same. So if I click just on this one, one click, I can move this one around as well. So this is how you're starting to get a lot more dynamic shapes and being able to change things up. If I was to click on the line in between it, notice that both of them aren't selected, but I can drag those two at the same time. It's kind of intuitive that way. If I do accidentally select the inside of it, it will get all four of the points instead. So the Direct Selection Tool, all you can do with it is move one point or a series of points at a time. How do you select multiple points, you ask? Very good. Hold down the Shift key. I can now select this point and this point, and with those three selected, I can move just those three, and this one will stay still by itself. Pretty cool? Okay. All of that stays the same. Selecting just this point, move it around to be able to change it up. That's what each one of these tools allow you to do. Black arrow is for the entire object to be able to move and rotate. White arrow, Direct Selection Tool, only individual points to select it. I'll zoom back out. So let's keep learning about the different shapes. By the way, I'm doing something really quick. If you want to select multiple things, you can also click and drag over them. And when I deselect, anything that touched that rectangle can be selected as well. To delete anything with it selected, I can hit the delete key and they go away that way. Alright, so that was a quick tour of the rectangle tool. Rounded rectangle tool does exactly the same thing. When I click and drag, I get a rectangle with rounded corners. We'll move those out of the way. The ellipse tool, this is a fun one. When I click and drag with my ellipse tool, of course I get circles and ellipses, whether tall or short. Guess what I have to hold down if I wanted a perfect circle? Shift key, very good. Y'all learned that from InDesign, same thing. Also, if I held down the shift key with the rectangle tool, I get a perfect square. Shift key will always give you that perfect alignment for what you're working for. Let's see, I'll delete these away. Let's pull up another circle as well. When we get into actually creating different lines, and we'll do this next week, watch what happens when I choose my direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this point. I get these other little lines that control the curve of a curved line. These are called Bezier handles. When I click on these, this will allow me to adjust the curvature of one side and then the other side of this line. They take a lot of practice getting used to, and you can drag them out and change them up. But as soon as you know how to control the curve and what the curve is doing, you can create some really interesting, fun type artwork as well. Bezier curves allow you to make curved lines, and we'll do that a little bit more next week. But just to let you know, that's
what's that word again? Can you spell it?
Bezier. I'll spell it out up here. B-E-Z-I-E-R. French term. Of course, a little umlaut above that one. Bezier was a French, I think he was an architect back in the 1800s. He actually came up with this concept of math to be able to use that. All right, last ones. This is the Polygon Tool. With the Polygon Tool, click and drag. Polygon is multiple sides. So right now I've got a 6-sided polygon. What's the name of a 6-sided polygon? Huh? Hexagon, very good. If I wanted to add sides to this, I can click and drag. Check this out. Using the up and down arrows on your keyboard, you can add or take away. So if I press the down arrow, you can see it takes away a particular number of sides. And I'm still holding down my mouse. If I press the up arrow, I can increase the number of sides that I need. Holding down the mouse and hitting the up and down arrow allows you to do that. Only when I let go of the mouse does it commit to that particular shape. Same way for the star tool. With the star tool, I can click and drag. If I hold the up arrow, I can add points to a star. Down arrow, I can take away points. All the way down to, of course, just 3-pointed star. Very cool. All right, so that's the easy type using stuff. By the way, this last one, this is called the flare tool. In my 15 or so years of being a graphic designer, I've never found a good use for this tool, but it allows you to create lens flares on your artwork. To me, they're ugly. I've never had a good use for them. If you can find a use for it, kudos to you. I'm not going to teach it, so but it's called the flare tool. It's barely. It's beautiful, yeah. It's great, but I would much prefer to make my own flares than to use this. But yeah, it is beautiful. Okay, the main ones we're going to work with are these particular here. Show you one last thing that will help you out with this particular shapes document. What you're going to do for this one is you're going to recreate the shapes that you see on here. Try to get the colors as close as possible. I'm not going to count off if they're not 100%. But when you print these off, these shapes will not print. The shapes you create will print. Does that make sense? So this is kind of like a template.
Can you say it one more time?
You're going to when you print this off, the shapes that you see will not print. The shapes that you remake will be printed. Okay? So for this one, for instance, we're going to make a rectangle, fill color white, stroke black, certain size. You can click and drag over it, and it's created. Already got the white and black. I need to change up the stroke size, which I can type in at the very top up here. That's an easy one. Same way for a perfect circle. Choose your circle tool, click and drag. Remember, hold down your shift key. Here's another thing you may want to take note of. I'm holding down my shift key, but I want to get it perfectly aligned with that circle. I'm going to hold down my space bar. Watch what happens when the space bar is held down. I can now move around. So space bar is held, and I can move my object around until I get it positioned where I want it to be. So space bar to move. When I let go, then I can resize it. So I'm using both of these keys together to get it done. Change the fill color to red, particular point. Same way for the star tool as well. Here's another thing that'll help out for these particular ones. Sometimes I'll ask for something very, very specific, like a specific number of sides, or for it to be a specific height and a specific width. Here's how you can get a specific type of shape. Let's do the 7-pointed star. So I'm going to choose my star tool. Instead of clicking and dragging, I'm just going to click once in the center. When I click once, it's going to give me an options dialog box, and it's going to ask me, hey, what do you want the radius to be and how many points? So the radius, this first one, is going to be your outside circle. And in this case, I want it to be a radius of 1 inch. The radius 2 is the inside of it. In this case, I want it to be 0.5. 0.5. And I want it to have 7 points to it. When I say OK, now I've got my star created perfectly. All I've got to do is to change up the stroke and the colors of it as well. This is true for any type of shape that you're building. So if I wanted a specific sized rectangle, just click once, and it'll give you the options to type in the specific size. So if I wanted exactly 5 by 3, there's a 5 by 3 rectangle that's created. All cool? Any questions on that? So that's the simple stuff for recreating these. You're going to read exactly what you need. Of course, remember to change the color. Make sure that you double-click on either the fill color or the stroke color to change that up as well. For these, so these are to help you practice the rotation, the moving, and even the arrangement of different objects. And you're going to only use your black arrow. With the black arrow, let's see the first one. This is something that I didn't cover. Notice that when you create an object, there's a certain stacking order that they're in. So the first one you create is on the bottom, and any new ones you create would be stacked on top of them. So what I want you to do is to figure out what's going to be on behind something, what's going to be in front of something. And here's how you can change the stacking order. First of all, I'm going to select one of the coins. I know this is the biggest one, so I want it to be behind all the other ones. To change the arrangement, go to Object, down to Arrange, and now you can either bring it forward or move it back. Let's see, if I do Send Backwards, notice now it's behind the green one. It changed the stacking order for that one. And I can do this over and over again. What's the hotkey to send backwards? Command and the bracket keys. Those are located next to the P on your keyboard. So I can hit Command, Open or Close, and that will change the arranging it, bringing it forward or backwards. Or you can send it all the way to the front or all the way to the back. And I'll send it behind everything else as well. What you're going to do is you're going to stack these so that they're one on top of the other. Let's see if I wanted to bring that one all the way to the front. So now it's on top of everything else from there. Arranging the stacking order will allow you to change up your objects and basically know what's in front of the other one, or especially if you have to block off or mask out a particular area. Rotation, very easily, just as you've seen. When you select an object, you're going to click outside the bounding box and rotate it to match the object that's in the background. You shouldn't have to move these around. I believe they should be right where they need to be. You just have to be able to rotate it into order. Same thing for moving and scaling. For this one, you're going to scale it in as best as possible and get it to fit the particular area that it's in. How many of y'all remember playing with this type of toy when you're maybe a toddler or something? You had to get the blocks to fit in there. That's essentially what you're doing. You're just doing it on a very, very simple scale. I'm keeping these easy for now because these are the basics. Next week we're going to learn how to make different things and you actually create something from it. And this is the fun one. Using only the white arrow, you're going to correct these different objects. So remember, with the white arrow, I can select only one point at a time and click and drag it to match the area that I want it to be. What I want you to do is to correct each one of these. Remember, if you select just a line, it's going to move 2 of them. And you can select objects inside of that as well. What I'm looking for is, will it line back up? If it's not 100%, I'm okay with that. You can always zoom in, Command and the plus sign, just like in Illustrator, or excuse me, InDesign, allows you to zoom in and get that down perfect. The fun one is going to be the curved lines. So first of all, if I click on it, I can see where all of my points are. So if you don't know where a point is, just click on it, and now you can see exactly where it's at. To get that one, move it around. I don't think you'll have to adjust your Bezier too much to get it back into place. Very simple. Now if you do click on the line, something like that's going to happen. If you do make a mistake and want to back up, if you want to undo it, Illustrator allows you to infinitely undo. So you can go to Edit, Undo, and it will back up however many times that you want it to be. Same way for this one. Let's see. Ooh, wow, this one's going to be fun. This one, I believe you do have to change up your Bezier curve. So with this one, when you select it, I want you to adjust your curve, and you try to tell me how best to change it up or to correct this one. Some will be more easy than others. Once you're finished with these, I think I made a mistake. I think I told y'all to print them off. Instead of printing, we're going to upload these to Moodle. So you can go to File, and you can just do Save or Save As if you want to add your name to it. I will make you aware of this. When you save something in Adobe Illustrator, so let's say I added my name to it. We'll do it to the desktop. You're going to get a second dialog box. This is very important if you have a newer version of Adobe Illustrator. We have version 5. If you have version 6 or Creative Cloud, this is where you can save it as an older version. So for instance, at home, I still have Adobe Illustrator 10, so sometimes I'll save things down to an older version down there as well. Main thing is keep it at a version you can open up, CS5. When you say OK, that's when you can be able to save it. And here's the file on there as well. When you are done, we're going to upload these to Moodle. Let's see. Yep, there we are. They're finished Illustrator exercises. You don't have to print these off once you're finished. Any questions about today? Want me to go over anything else? All right. I'll turn your computers back over to y'all.